I mean, and just being brutally honest, and I love your phrase, be authentic, and try to be as authentic as I can. It is not easy. And I think any parent or working mom or dad that says this, oh yeah, we're gonna have a goal set up, and I'm gonna start making my calls at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm gonna dial till 10, and then I'm gonna make this break. Look, shit happens throughout the day that's gonna throw monkey wrenches at you all the time.
Welcome to Authentic Conversations. I'm your host, Ryan James Miller, and I believe the way to freedom, fulfillment, and success ultimately comes by living as the most authentic version of yourself. If you're ready to live the life you've dreamed of, you're in the right place. All right, what up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Authentic Conversations. We are rolling in season 2. You should agree with that. We have been on fire. Lots of great conversations with guys primarily, and we have been talking manhood, digging into so many topics around emotion and failure and shame and defining manhood and parenting and just so many things that most guys aren't really willing to talk about. It's scary, even though guys won't admit that it's scary. There's a lot of unknown out there. It kind of puts us into a weird and awkward position at times, and it requires us to break through layers that we have built up and society has built up for us in terms of how we are to converse and relate as men. And so today is another opportunity to just smash right through that wall. I was fortunate enough, as I have been so often, to meet this gentleman through social media. It's a great way to interact. I was introduced to Michael, and we hit it off. We've had some great conversations, having the fortune to be able to talk a little bit about business and life offline. And now we get to do that on the podcast. So with that, get to welcome Michael Pedalino to Authentic Conversations. What's up, dude?
Ryan, thank you so much. It's great to be here. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and go through this process with me. And social media, LinkedIn has been great. A good friend of ours, John Troutman, connected us, and the synergies are definitely there. It's a testament of what you've done and how you built up your network, and is following you on LinkedIn and you're following. It's hats off to you and all your success, man. And again, I'm grateful for the opportunity here just to get to know you a little bit more, and obviously your audience, and go from there.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it, right? I mean, we have had at least a couple of conversations offline. A lot of times when I schedule podcasts, I know very little about my guests. And sometimes people are like, why the hell would you do that? That's so risky. But I love to just have organic conversation, almost as if we were just sitting down over coffee or an old fashioned or something like that. And, and we were just shooting the shit. And I just feel like It is such a better way to talk. And so, so we're going to dig right in. And as I've been trying to do as often as possible with my guests throughout this season, is kind of set the tone in this way. So if I asked you for your definition of manhood, or what you believe it means to be a man today, what would you say?
Wow. It's kind of a loaded question in our society where we want to tiptoe around, certain phrases and whatnot when you talk about manhood. It just means just to be, for me, it's just to be real, and be a provider to my family. Number one, I serve my God. I'm not afraid to say it in this day and age. I love my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Everything I have is owed to him. That's the foundation that I try to lay myself, or put myself there, and just be a good provider and a good friend and a good steward in the community, to serve my church, obviously my family, my wife. I got 3 beautiful kids. One is going to be 16 on Saturday. Another one is 14, and another one is 8. So I got my hands full, and it's just to be the best dad. My dad was never there for me, Ryan. I mean, he was there. I love him to death, but he was never there working. He was always working. He was never home, and I never really had a mom. So it's to provide that parenthood structure for my kids. That's my first priority.
Okay, so that's a fascinating point that you bring up, and I think one that so many of us today struggle with. So you a couple of different times when you talked about what it meant to be a man for you, you talked about providing for your family, and yet you said that your dad really wasn't around much for you, though he was out I'm sure, working really hard to provide for you, his family. And so how have you been able to balance that yourself? Because, I've shared this with the audience before, but, for me, from 20, so I had my first daughter at 23. I was just short of my 23rd birthday. I had found some success early on. I hit my first kind of stride in sales about 23, 24. And so I was making money. I was hustling hard. And I was told, like, work hard, provide for the family. We were a single income household at that time. We had a mortgage. We were driving a Mercedes and a nice SUV. And so, I was always working hard to, quote unquote, provide for my family. And so I get that struggle. And so how do you balance that? Because you need to go out and work hard and hustle. But part of being a provider is to provide yourself, to be present for your family too. So what does that look like?
Yeah, it's look, it's a struggle. I mean, it's how do you it's so obviously, right. You want to grind, you want to hustle. And the great thing about the profession that I'm in, and obviously owning your own business and being in sales my entire life myself, is that you could set your own schedule, whereas my dad had a meat market. He had to be there at 8:00 in the morning till 9:00 at night. He was just at that old school mentality of if I'm not there, everything's going to go wrong. And then sure enough, he's pulling up in the driveway at 9:30 at night. Whereas I'm in, my office, which is right here in my own home. And then I get to go see my kids, which is right down the hall. So, but at the same time, to your point, you're hustling, you're here physically, but are you there? Are you there for them mentally? And sometimes I have to keep myself in perspective, because even though you're in the same house, you're still checked into work, and it's like you're in another room and they're really not there. So, and obviously with the COVID situation, in remote work is new to a lot of people, never new to me. I've always done it pre-COVID. So it's that balance there that you have to find it. But the good thing is that I get to pick up my son from karate school. I get to go pick up my oldest son from football practice. Whereas, if I was at a work or at another location, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it has been hard, and, more so maybe now than ever, the lines have been grayed, right? I mean, for a period of time, some even still now, the kids are home, the spouse is home, dad's home. And so it's like, this is my work time, then there will be family time, but they see you there. And so they want you to be a part of it. And so how do you intentionally, like, I know you talk about, and I think that that's super helpful, like, picking up the kids, from practice, but like, how do you intentionally put time into your day, into your week, in order to invest into them in that way, so you can provide more than just the financial means for them to do those things?
Yeah, look, I mean, and just being brutally honest, and I love your phrase, be authentic, and try to be as authentic as I can. It is not easy. And I think any parent or working mom or dad that says, oh yeah, we're gonna have a goal set up, and I'm gonna start making my calls at 8:00 in the morning, and I'm gonna dial till 10, and then I'm gonna make this break. Look, shit happens throughout the day that's going to throw monkey wrenches at you all the time. And so many people try so hard to be a perfectionist. And I get it. We all want to strive to be perfect. And all I try to do is capture excellence to try to run my day. I have a certain set of calls that I know I need to make. I don't dial for dollars back in the, when I was first getting in sales and pounding for payment for making 100 calls a day, trying to hit a number. There are certain people that I'll take my time. I'll slow down a lot. I'll sit down. I'll say, okay, I want to meet X, Y, and Z company. I'll profile that account. And then, you know what? I've done what I need to. I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to go spend some time with the family, spend some time with the wife, have a nice little lunch and just the cool thing is being home together, we can do that. Mm-hmm. So that way, when I'm with them, Ryan, I can basically tune out the work, and then I can come back and sit down and focus on making the next few calls or and setting the next few meetings that I have to.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think again, right? It's intention is great. And carving stuff like that out, putting that into our calendars, planning for that to happen, but then it's a whole nother thing to do it. And so I love the fact that you say that, shit happens. And, sometimes you can plan for it well, other times you can't, but that intentionality and then committing to it as best as possible, I think is something that is super important for us. And it's not something that we generally do well with, right? Because again, like if we're a very structured person, and again, this is especially, I think this is more so a guy thing than anything, but we're a structured person. So it's like, I live and die by my structure. That's the only thing I follow. And so there's no flexibility. Then the other side, and I don't meet as many guys like this, but I know they're out there where they just live in complete chaos. And so they're numb to everything. And so sometimes they can lose their way completely and they're, just lost in the business all day long, or they get distracted one time throughout the day by one of the kids. And so then, they lose, the ability to go back and go to work, or, it can just be so chaotic. So I think knowing yourself well and finding that balance is so important. So let me ask you this. So you said your oldest is 16. So I'm going to imagine that, and not that you said that everything is 100% dialed in right now, but I have to imagine that it hasn't always been as smooth then as it is today. So was there a shift in mindset, like, or have you just always had it figured out to the point where you kind of knew what you needed to do and always done it that way as it related to day structure, investing into your family, that type of stuff?
No, as far as, speaking of the children, they didn't come with an instruction manual. So parenting, a newborn, I tell all new parents this, parenting, a newborn is definitely different than parenting a 16-year-old teenager. And I tell all the dads out there who have a daughter who has that little phase of 3 to 5, you're their whole world. I'm like, cherish those moments, man, because, especially now in the world of TikTok and all this stuff, it's just, and don't get me wrong, we have a great relationship, but it's obviously, it has its more challenges then. But, and the cool thing is she runs track. She does very well at that. So I make it a priority that I have that time, Ryan, that I can definitely pick them up. And then get back into what I need to do. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes, when you get back, you tend to the kids, you're in the flow of your work, you tend to the kids, you come back, you got to finish your day and you got to finish. Look, I'm not going to lie. It is a struggle. And look, and sometimes, brutally honest, I do check out, and I have, I think if I'm not here mentally, then what am I doing? So I'll wrap it up and call it a day, and I'll come back and hit it twice as hard the next day. I think it's important to try to not run the rat race. I mean, what they have in Italy, for example, where, my ancestors came from, it's you work in the morning, you take a siesta in the afternoon, and then you kind of finish up in the afternoon. It's just a slower pace society. I think we're trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're trying to impress strangers at the red light that you don't even know. I think I like to try to just slow it down as much as I can.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. So another challenge that I find, and in talking to a lot of the guys that I do, whether I'm coaching them or even on the podcast, one of the big challenges that and I say we because I have found this at many different times in my life, we struggle to find good, solid male relationships that are walking with us in the process, that are trying to hold us accountable and support us, that are trying to encourage us to be the best, but also calling us idiots when we do idiot things. So does that exist in your life? Has that ever existed in your life? Like, what does that look like for you in terms of relationships with other men that are helping you to be the best man that you can be?
Oh, no, I love the question, Ryan. That's definitely I love it. So, short answer, going back to when I was younger, in my days in school, I was never the guy that played sports. I was never the guy that was in all the clubs. I was kind of a loner. Just wanted to just get through it. I wanted to go out and work. That's all I wanted to do. Didn't want to be around anybody. But as I kind of grown in my faith with Christ, just seeing the brotherhood of being close with good godly men, whether it be at a church breakfast on a Saturday morning, doing service work in the community, civic organization. I'm a member of a Kiwanis club here. It's local in Metairie. And just getting together and that bond there. So I've grown my sphere of having really nobody back when I was younger to having a good circle of good, strong men that I can be there, serve together, whether it's coffee and donuts at a methadone clinic that we do on a Wednesday morning, and just have that camaraderie and fellowship there.
And so it sounds like the relationships are there. How do you put yourself in front of them in a way that allows them to speak into your life as you are dealing with just that everyday challenges of life, whether it's argument with the spouse, a struggle to, in our world, we would say, be tempted to commit sin. Maybe you've had a hard day at work and you're trying to figure out how to battle through that. So how do you put yourself into that situation in those environments?
No, I'll give you a perfect example. So back in July, man, I'm not going to lie to you, I was mentally down in the dumps. And I think anybody or any man right now in this day and age who says they haven't gone through some sort of a depression, or not that you're always you're like in a bad state of mind, but if it hasn't gone to that downfall, is kind of lying to themselves or just being, just leaving it at that. But so back in July, I was having a rough time, man, mentally, saw the COVID stuff, the Delta coming back in, and the whole thing kind of reclusing back to 2020. I would reach out and text my good friend Warren, who's a close brother. I'm like, man, I'm struggling right now, and this is where I'm at. And he has a few more years in wisdom than me, so he said, just get in the Psalms and just read, just get back to the foundation of where we're at. And having that connection, that relationship with a good close brother in Christ is just definitely helped me out.
That's so good, man. You know what I love about that is, for people that don't know Christianity, don't understand it, don't follow it, this is even more foreign to them. But even inside the world of Christendom, there's this really weird belief that we have faith and we follow Jesus in order to make life better. And the reality is life just freaking sucks the same sometimes. And your encouragement to dig into the Psalms is wonderful, because there are a lot of beautiful Psalms in there, just celebrating the work of God in the world, globally, directly into a lot of the psalmist hearts, King David being one of them. But what I love even more so often about that is there are so many Psalms where David particularly is angry with God.
Yep,
I mean, angry. He is, in our words, and people don't take this the wrong way, but he's literally like middle finger in the air at God, cussing at him, without using those specific words, because he's just so angry with the way God is handling a situation, or with the way that something is happening, or the fact that God's not answering a prayer. And so I love that it's so relatable. It's like, this life is not easy, and it's never going to be easy. And if we don't understand the reality of things just suck sometimes, and we don't have a place to go with that, we're in deep shit.
Yep. You keep it all to yourself, and you're so right. I mean, that's, and there's such an opportunity right now to help others that are struggling. They don't have no faith whatsoever. And that's who I pray for, that I don't know how you get through this time without God. I just don't. And and reading those Psalms, man, it's like not only the anger, but the fear. And, he's out there running for his life from Saul and all, it's just where do you go? And there's no other place to go but to God. And even that too, it's like, okay, well, I'm prayed, and like, you just try to fight through it. And I ask God just to give me the strength, to get through the day.
That's good, man. It's so good. Okay. So where are some of the areas, and I don't expect, you're free to go as deep as you want with this, but what are some of the areas that are harder for you, that are more difficult for you to deal with or accept as happening, emotions that you're feeling?
Yeah. It is deep. And it just, obviously, look, every day is different, right? I've come from a background where I've kind of had to fight for my life. I had a mother who was an alcoholic, so I won't get too much into that. But, my situation was a lot better than other people. So I just dealt with a lot of verbal abuse at a young age where you're always told you're never going to be good enough or why were you born and all that. And that's just the PG version. So I've been a survivor a lot throughout my life. So, and then I lost my dad when he was 20 years old. So, and then obviously giving my kids a life that I didn't have is which what I strive for. And look, it's not easy. It's everybody's different. You don't know what people are going through. That's when I meet people, it's what's your background, what's your story, and obviously no one really shares it. And then what's sad is we have a time where the stigma, of mental health, and people are scared to go have these open conversations because they don't want to be judged, or they're going to feel like to be judged, or oh man, you got issues, or I'm like, no man. I mean, we all have something that's troublesome, and how do I deal with it? Again, I just I try to be grateful that I can, get to go to work every day, that I can, I still have, how many people take for granted the ability that they could walk outside with their 2 feet versus being in a wheelchair, or that they could see or hear. So sometimes when I think that I have it bad or I'm having a bad day, I really try to put myself back to where I could be more blessed. So that's about as deep as I can go for that few minutes of question, but there's a lot more to it.
So it would almost lead me to believe that you, because you're doing everything you can to provide the life for your kids that you didn't get, that becomes a serious burden and weight on your shoulders at times. Like there's just no way that I don't see any way that can't be the case. So is that something that you run up against, whether on a regular basis or from time to time, where you're feeling like you're carrying that weight and it almost becomes like an unbearable burden to deal with?
I wouldn't say unbearable. So for example, what I want to try to do is position my kids to where, when I lost my dad at 20, that was it for my parents. I want to, that's why I'm into the insurance business, because, my dad never had life insurance and really didn't have nothing there. So I want to paint a picture to my kids. Like, look, dad's not going to be here all the time. Mom's not going to be here all the time. I need to prepare them for life. I need to prepare them for how to get out and get it on. And I'm trying, the burden some is on me, Ryan, is to give them the tools and the foundation to where they could be off and running the training wheels or off when they're 18, 20 years old. And at that time, I can go travel the world with the money I make. I can basically I built it up to where they can go live their life and in the life can go travel the world and just be together and have those. Our work is done. It's never done. Don't get me wrong, but and I'll always be there for the kids. But I tell you what, man, I think parents have done a disservice to their kids, and just being brutally honest, with 25 years old, still living with mom and dad, still, in the basement watching Netflix, and they're not working, and mom and dad are still taking care of them. I think that is a big problem in society today. I think the spoiled mentality is, I can't see my kid go dig a ditch, or I don't want to see my son be a plumber. Plumbers make a lot of money. I was never blessed with the ability to do physical, like carpentry work or plumbing work. God didn't wire my brain that way. I can't do it. I commend those who do. I appreciate those who do. But there's a lot of good blue collar work out there that are living pretty well, but it's looked ugly upon in today's society. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah. So how do you see combating that? Because I do agree that it's definitely a challenge. I think that we do live in a soft society in very many ways, and we're raising kids to be that way. I would say, and this is somewhat of an unpopular opinion at times, but I believe it's the man's responsibility to be the leader that demonstrates something different to their kids. But do you see ways that whether it's as a father to children, as a leader in a business, as just a man of influence in the community, do you see there of ways that we can affect change in the way culture is going like that today?
I think a good way is these conversations we're having right here. And we're two guys, you're in California, I'm in Louisiana. Just to have these conversations to dads and men, other men out there, and fathers, just be bold and speak your heart. And look, you're not going to be right all the time, and there's going to be opportunities to disagree, but what's right is right. And we live in a day and age where you don't want to say anything to rub people the wrong way or hurt people's feelings. It's not intentional, but the truth is the truth. And I think I teach my kids in this day just to speak boldly, and it's uncomfortable at times. But you have to get out of your comfort zone and speak the truth. I mean, even conversations like this, I mean, some of these questions that you've asked, it's like, whoa, okay. Sharing my story a little bit, like, look, I had an issue with parents when I was a kid, and being honest about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good. I mean, one of the things that I try to teach my kids, and I try to live my own life by, is, to love people enough to speak the truth to them, but to do so in such a way that offers them a measure of grace and mercy and an opportunity to turn from a poor decision or bad way that they have walked. And again, I think that's a balance that we don't see today. We have one side of the pendulum, which is, I'm going to love people so much that I'm just going to let them live their life the way that they want to, regardless of what happens. The other side of that pendulum, as it swings, says, I am going to cancel people the minute they make any kind of mistake, and I'm going to give them no opportunity to be redeemed. And what I love right there, smack dab in the middle, is, there's a God out there that says, I loved you when you were at your worst. I've held a mirror up to your face to show you just how bad you were. And at the same time, I've offered you this perfect path to be redeemed and to step into a new life of grace and mercy. And I think that that's something that just needs to be communicated more regularly and lived out, as we're in the world today.
No, 100%. Absolutely. If you look at what happened in the 50s and 1950s in a nuclear family, I mean, you think about how wholesome and everything was, but a lot of the parents would beat their kids over the head with the Bible and say, "Oh, look at this. You listen to that rock and roll music, you're going to go to hell." And then, which led to the 60s. Okay, well, guess what? By the time those kids were in college, that's when that revolution came, and we're going to do what we want to do. And that's, like, it's that pendulum there, man. I mean, there is that grace there. And like, I raise my kids to where, not as strict as a lot of so-and-so Baptists would, and I'm a Christian first, but I have followed that Baptist philosophy of there's a lot of strictness there. And guess what? Dads are having some hard relationships with their kids in their 20s because they basically use the Bible and say, hey, and basically lock them in a mental box where they can't live their life. And you got to let them experience some of this stuff and say, hey, look, it's like, I'll put it to you this way. You get a big box of chocolates. Okay. And say, okay, here's a big bowl of chocolates. Go ahead and eat. First chocolate tastes good, right? We'll keep eating until that point to where they're so full and disgusted. And it's like, that's what sin does for you. It looks good. The first one, it may feel good, but then once you consume the bunch of it, the next, a little while later, you're sick to your stomach.
Yeah, my problem was I always just went after a sin the size of a boulder to start. So I get halfway through it and I'd already be sick before I even finished the dang thing. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a lot about this from a personal life perspective, which is so helpful for people to hear. And just as we start to kind of land this conversation, I'm interested to hear how this works itself out for you then in business. So I'll say easy. It's not easy to parent children. I've got a 19 and 12-year-old daughter, and I get it. I've been married for just over 20 years. I get it, right? There's a lot of challenge there, but we get to kind of call the shots for the most part in our family. And even when you say you're in business for yourself, for the most part, you get to call your shots too, but it's still a challenge to go out and be the man you desire to be in the business world. And so how do you live your life into there in such a way that models that same behavior and commitment that you have everywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, love the question. So I try to put the client first, Ryan. When I go out and meet with clients, new clients, or prospects before they become a client, I basically find out what's their goals. How can I help them versus, look at me, look at me and look at the widgets that I have and look how I can make, look, this is what I can do. So, if you look at, there's a good marketing book called Building a Story Brand, and it basically talks about the good model. I don't know if you read it, but there's the Karate Kid and there's Luke Skywalker, and it's like they're the heroes of the story, right? The Karate Kid and they're the most focal point. Well, the Karate Kid, the hero always had a guide, so, Karate Kid had Miyagi, and, Luke Skywalker had Yoda. And the guide basically made them into the superhero. Same thing with Batman, Alfred the Butler. So the guide, there's always a guide to the hero. So my goal is to be the guide for the client so I can make them look like the hero. Myself, I try to be I keep a modest profile. Obviously, in sales, in the world of business, there's a little bit of ego involved, which was to my detriment back in the 20s as a young man growing up into the sales world and business. But having those kids and reset as I am in my 40s, very modest. I just want to make the client better any way I can. And that's the approach I take in my consulting practice when it comes to employee benefits and in the payroll space. And I have another company too in the construction space where I sell construction equipment. Have that product that make them look good, and I can do that for them, Ryan. That's how my approach to business is to my customers.
That's good. Okay. So one final question I have for you. I should preface this, but I don't. So if you were to give advice to another man out there that's really struggling to be the man that they desire to be, they're talking about their struggle, really having a hard time just pursuing who they want to be, what would be one word of advice that you would give to them?
I have to go with two words: press on. Just where you're at in this moment, if you're really, you feel like the world's coming down on your shoulders, just press on and get back up. Get up and press on. And there's that I'll close with this. There's when Sylvester Stallone came out and said he's doing another Rocky Balboa. After I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're gonna get back in the ring in your 60s here. But there's that famous quote in that movie when he's telling his kid, it's like, it ain't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That was one of the greatest motivational lines of a movie I've seen, and but just keep moving forward. That's good, man. I love it. All right. Well, another episode in the books. I love having these conversations. I love an opportunity to be able to just share in the lives of other men out there that never claim to have it together, but are doing everything that they can to keep it together. And so I appreciate, Michael, you taking the time to be on the podcast today. And for everybody that's listening, again, Michael's advice is so great. It's not about bulldozing through life, but it's about continuing to get up, knowing that is just one wrinkle in this longstanding plan that you have to live the life that you've been created for. So wonderful advice. I love it so much. So Michael, thanks so much, man. I appreciate the time today. Ryan, thank you, man. It was awesome. God bless. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that wraps up another episode of Authentic Conversations. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, you know where to find me. In the meantime, be you, be happy, be authentic. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Authentic Conversations. If you are ready to live the life you've dreamed of, I'm here to help. Head to ryanjamesmiller.com/podcast to begin your journey. And if this episode impacted you in any way, pay it forward by sharing it with someone you know. I'm Ryan James Miller, and I'll see you next time on Authentic Conversations.